Hello and welcome to episode 373 of the Crate and Crowbar. It is the 18th of June 2021, which I think, as you'll all agree, is the perfect time to join me, Chris Thurston.
Me, Tom Senior.
Nice. And
Marsh Davis.
To discuss E3, an event that ended a week ago. I don't know at this point. I've got a little plastic lion cup full of rum, and I'm willing to pretend this is news.
Yeah. It's a testament to what a year it's been that, like, thousands of games industry veterans actually wished they could physically attend E3 in person, like in actual LA, the worst city on earth. But we didn't. We didn't get to do that. We got to watch it.
So it's all a series of online showcases, which E3 has kind of been, I think for most people that's what it is, has been for years now anyway.
Yeah.
So what was really lost, apart from obviously everyone getting drunk together and sort of like, probably just start games companies together or whatever happens behind those doors.
This is
bars in LA.
The professional whooper industry has been hit extraordinarily hard by
that's
this.
right. Yeah.
And I think we should
devastate.
Well, you say that, but I mean, Twitch chat more than made up for the obnoxious whooping. Did you catch any of the Twitch chat controversy, which extended across nearly every conference?
I did not actually.
No.
Me.
Well, I mean, the long and the short of it is that it wasn't moderated properly. And the best case scenario for nearly any of the conferences was that it got turned off really quickly. But in the worst case, I think Squeenix didn't manage to turn it off before the chat got spammed with what I've read described as hyper-realistic Among Us cock ASCII art. So that was good. But mostly it was just racist and horrible. So bring back the whoopers, I say.
It's this thing of with these shows, I have run shows like this. I have been on the other side of the fence from these things, and I understand the kinds of things that go into making them run well and the things that can cause them to have all of these problems. And that gives me like this sort of mixture of watching all these shows is always a mixture of kind of vicarious terror, I think, that maybe it makes me a little bit, that I think puts a wall between me and the schadenfreude I might otherwise have experienced had I not had that experience. So something like a moderation issue, I've seen exactly how something like that can happen. I don't think it's necessarily excusable in the year 2021 at all, honestly. But it's exactly the thing now that sort of fills me with visions of giant Among Us knobs floating into the way of my own professional success. So, yeah.
Yeah, I did get the terror at some points. I mean, actually, most of it was totally canned, so there wasn't much terror to be had. But Summer Game Fest, hosted by Jeff Keighley, always an unheimlich presence at the best of times, did provide some sort of fairly seemingly unscripted weirdness.
Why was it live?
I don't know.
That's a question I have.
He didn't need to be on a stage in an empty soundstage. It was very strange. He was presenting it as though he was at E3, but there was a conspicuous lack of whooping, for one thing. It was a peculiar performance. But it did bring my favourite moment of the entire show, which was Giancarlo Esposito's interview. I forget, he's Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah, and Moff Gideon from The Mandalorian as well.
And the up-and-coming dictator from Far Cry 6, hence his appearance in this game-related show. And the interview with him was a strange sort of free associative discourse about his favourite dictators, including the fairly kind of niche pick of Nicolae Ceausescu, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
I thought that was wonderful. And I thought that for this reason, I really think that Giancarlo Esposito was definitely trying to give good interview in that moment. It's so easy when you're receiving softballs. I think it can be good for the overall piece if you bat them back pretty hard. And this started with, I think Jeff Keighley saying, what's it like to play this particular villain? And he just pushed really hard on the idea that the dictator villain from Far Cry 6 is the villain. And, sort of occupying the character. And it was kind of good, kind of,
I like that
plummy actor stuff. But it led into this strange aside about, like, Hitler's star sign and the line, my daughter hadn't even heard of Ceausescu, which is just one of the funniest things that's ever been said at E3, taken out of context. And, it was like all of the warmth of an actor who's probably not like hugely into games themselves, legitimately trying to engage with the interview and not look down on it or anything like that. But their subject matter being some of the worst people that have ever existed. And it was, it was really extraordinary.
You mean Weezer, obviously.
Yeah. And also just the fact that this is against the backdrop of, I think, the eternal back and forth over whether these games are necessarily political. And I feel like it's not that this puts some stones at either end of that particular seesaw. It's enough to say Giancarlo Esposito didn't help.
Yeah. So there are a few other weird moments of this conference, like Weezer playing some terrible track from one of their terrible albums, and Deviation Games turned up to tell everybody what good friends the founders were with each other, which was very sweet.
I loved this. And I loved many things about this, and I want to stop you before you continue. Or otherwise, we've got a lot to get through, but it's important we pause here because I know what it. I think I said there's a lot goes into making these shows happen, and sometimes you roll with the material that you've got. But I think those two nice men who'd made some games and are now making some more games, I suppose, but nothing to say or show. I think they got like best friend married, like by Jeff Keighley on stage, and I think that's lovely. The other thing I love about this is one of the very few things in the Crate and Crumble we've ever had to record twice, because the first time this happened, we got the name of the company wrong. And while looking for the actual name of the company, Marsh just typed the word friends into our Discord that we use to coordinate the podcast. He thought it was the search window. And so none of us, but especially Marsh, really have the power to criticize anyone, including Weezer, for the rest of this episode. As far as it's not to say that it's not going to happen. It's just that is now one of my favorite things about E3, and that wouldn't have happened if those two nice men, who I think maybe made a Call of Duty at one point, didn't come on stage to announce nothing other than what good friends they are. And I thought that was lovely, and I wish there was more of that at E3 in general.
What a beautiful moment.
I might like it as much as the Giancarlo Esposito dictator chat. I'm just going to say it.
Well, I was going to move on to the Fall Guys Nier Automata Titbot skin next, which sort of sours this sweet moment. Was that a thing that needed to be added to Fall Guys? Probably not.
Just a hot lozenge. What?
Should we talk about some games instead?
I mean, Fall Guys is a game, Marsh. Come on.
Yeah. Death Stranding got a director's cut. Are you excited about that, Tom? Are you excited to imagine what kinds of things were cut?
How was the original not a flipping director's cut already? I mean, I love the game. I really do. I pretty much played it twice. No, we can't have Snyder cuts done by Kojima. We can't have that. It has to be prevented somehow.
You can and you will.
You're right. Nothing I could do about it. Yeah, Marsh, are you excited about this prospect?
I think that may be an indulgence too far.
I think you might be right.
Frankly. I think we should just blast through stuff reasonably quickly, if that's okay with you guys, because I know there's an awful lot. There wasn't actually that much of note at the Summer Games Fest. There was the Evil Dead game, which...
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the sound of a chainsaw.
There was Anacrusis, or the Anacrusis rather, which is interesting because it's one of a large number of Left 4 Dead style co-op shooters that came out, that promising to come out. What do you think of this trend? Is this a good trend? Can you have too many 4 Deads?
Yeah, so the thing about Left 4 Dead clones is like, why are they happening now? It's been out for so long. Like, why a sudden rush of them from loads of different studios?
Yeah, it is a strange one. Obviously, we'll probably move on to talk about the most prominent one of these that got announced, which is Redfall, which is much later in a different show. But, between this and Back for Blood, it does feel like a trend. And I don't know what it is that has sort of like changed in the ether that means that now is the time for 4-player kind of point-to-point survival, blasting games. Like, yeah, just I'm opposed to that. It's a fun genre. It's just, it didn't feel like there was a trend, and now there suddenly is one.
Yeah, this E3 also seemed to be awash with 2.5D sort of Ori-style platformers. The next game I was going to talk about was Planet of Lana, which is really cute little blobby little protagonist and these really lush leafy vistas and blue skies and cute critters. And then it's sort of the mood changes and you get these sort of stark silhouetted monsters like the monsters from Limbo who are like 90% mouth, part Ghibli, part Gobbly, you might say. Which is the only reason I included it on this list, was just to say that, really. But I mean, it is interesting that that also seems to have suddenly re-emerged as a big genre this year.
Yeah, the next Metroid game is going to be one of those as well, isn't it?
Yeah, literally a Metroid game.
Right. Yeah, I would say Ori is a reasonable comparison here, but I think you said like Limbo felt like it had a big influence over a lot of the games that were revealed and of this kind. And that is again a great game and interesting to see its influence suddenly kind of rear up,
And the only other game I think from Summer Game Fest that was really worth talking about was the big reveal, which was Elden Ring.
Can I just say I was so pleased that they got this, because I think when they're in a situation where the chat is only demanding one thing and it's this one thing, not having it sucks. It's not, it wouldn't be anyone's fault, because these things are always at the whims of publishers and development status and all the rest of it. But I was just really glad for Jeff Keighley that he got to open this present for everybody. Not that appeasing chat is the point of the show necessarily, obviously, but I was just happy for him, I think. Yeah,
it was an exciting moment. I like big reveals, and I mean, part of the reason I was a terrible journalist is because I really don't like leaks. I don't. I think there's a communal thrill in receiving something at the right time when it's ready to be shown, and something long anticipated. Yeah. Suddenly emerging with such fanfare is a really exciting moment that would only have been degraded had it been kind of parceled out earlier.
It's really good that I'm glad that nothing came out, and then when they did decide to show it properly, it was actually recognizably in-game footage of this game that definitely really exists and looks like ready for me to play right now.
I'm surprised that it's actually it feels quite. I mean, it's obviously very much in the Dark Souls lineage. Rather than the Sekiros or the Bloodborns, but I'm surprised that it is quite so bound to the sorts of imagery that we're very familiar with in Dark Souls, rather than being something which takes that and moves it in a starkly different direction. I guess with George R.R. Martin being big fantasy beard boy, that probably wasn't going to happen. But I'm. Do you think they're positioning it as a successor to Dark Souls rather than trying to spin off in some kind of new artistic direction?
It felt like its connections to Dark Souls were so strong that I wouldn't be surprised if it has some sort of twist where it is connected, right? Like, the imagery is really similar. There was a Dark Souls looking knight at one point. And obviously some of that is just, from Software House style, like Demon Souls is not necessarily, directly linked despite having much of the same kind of iconography necessarily. There were parts of it that gave me, sort of vibes from the other games. It has a line, I rewatched the trailer before recording this, and it has a line in like massive grotty dressing gown men, which connects it to both Bloodborne and Sekiro, I think. Like the particular way that From Software big dudes have like gribbly hair. Do you know what I mean? Like the big manes, like
hair that may be tendrils.
Yeah, exactly. And like there's but one of those gribbly men in it shouts something like, "You, a shitty boy, would pretend to be a lord." And that felt there. And like...
Sorry, the expression in game is tarnished. And if they just replace that with shitty boy, pretty extraordinary.
Look, this is the From Software thing. You're always some kind of shitty boy. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, actually, maybe that's more of the Dark Souls thing, right? Like,
yeah.
You're always some kind of awful shitty boy, and you're here to teach God how to be a king or something. And there's a bit where Dragon looks a bit like Seath, I guess, has a lightning bolt that looks like it might have belonged to Gwyn, I guess. Who knows? I think it's nice enough that those games are sort of happy enough to be their own little mythology, that those things don't have to be direct plot links, the kind that a coward might write. They can instead be sort of like inference and a sort of shared symbolic language without direct kind of sort of pedantic connection. But yeah, it looked really nice. There's a horse. The horse can double jump. What else do you want?
Tom, you excited?
Very excited. I agree. It looked very much like Dark Souls, but I'll play another Dark Souls.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready.
Oh, yeah. That observation was not tinged by any kind of disappointment. It was just, interesting. But, oh, God. I can't wait. It's February next year, right?
January.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Fucking hell, indeed.
Sorry.
So the things. So Graham just replied in the chat when Marsh wrote friends with just a question mark. We're enjoying this live. I got to start looking at chat. It's distracting. Marsh, it's vitally important that you don't give Graham the context for this until he edits this podcast.
Sorry,
good.
Graham.
Sorry, Graham. Should we move on to one of the other shows, Marsh?
Yes. Microsoft and Bethesda opened with Starfield, showing no gameplay, but some spaceships.
Pointless.
I mean, it looked a bit like Alien, I guess, the spaceship design. That's what I thought.
Huh?
Had a bit of like retro sort of 70s sci-fi to it. I like that. Show me that. I clicked like. I have no other opinion. It is hard to say anything else. The name sounds a bit like Garfield. There you go. Can you do anything with that? Probably not.
Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl.
Perfect name for a dating game.
Yeah, I'm well up for another Stalker game. I don't. There's been so many wrangles over the name of Stalker now and the IP that I'm not quite sure what the lineage of the studio that's making this one is. Whether it does have any link back to the original developers. I believe it does, because I think there's the likeness of one of the original developers appears in this trailer. It certainly captures kind of the mood and the setting of Chernobyl of previous Stalker games, but the combat looked incredibly stiff. I thought very just walk into the room, all the enemies are missing you, laboriously turn your stiff gun to point at people, click, click, click. It didn't scintillate, but maybe that's just because it's not finished.
That was a preview's worth of analysis in like 20 seconds, and bravo to you.
Do you have any feelings about this game, Tom?
I enjoyed the original, and this one offers no further. It's creating expectation. It might be a little bit like that, but who knows, really? Like, I like the idea of more Stalker. I've enjoyed playing through the Metro series just as a kind of Stalker-light version of that. But I don't know if this will be like as sort of survivalist as Stalker felt. That world really felt just kind of alien, and the combat in that was stiff as well. But the whole just be able to walk into an area and have it like try to kill you with this awful white noise happening and an anomaly nearby of things just floating and lightning zapping around, like that kind of bit of horrible radiation magic, dark magic type stuff. That's what really made Stalker for me. So I don't know, until I've actually played the new one or seen more of it, whether I should get excited about it.
think it's tricky for these games now because Stalker is kind of a genre now. Let's be real. Like, that stretches many different directions, right? It goes into a kind of arcadier, more explicitly sci-fi direction, like Metro. And then, but like Tarkov owes it a huge debt, right? Like, even though, in the other direction. And I feel like it's hard to feel surprised by those environments and those things now, right? And so, and given that the first Stalker is such a journey into the unknown, I'm not quite sure how they recreate that. It's kind of exciting. Like, I thought it looked great. Like, just visually and the sense of place, etc., was really, really extraordinary. But I think that's one of the big, like, for people who love that game, I suspect a lot of that was, I suspect a lot of that environment is bound up in the experience of experiencing it for the first time through Stalker, and the particular way that it unfolds that environment to you, and the particular way that it feels. And so I think one of the challenges facing it is like zone games are just a thing now, right? Like, or roadside picnic games are just a thing now. And so, like, how do they recapture that beyond simply a higher fidelity place to get, yoinked into a gravity anomaly?
Yeah. I did like the bit where you're throwing the little nuts to sort of tempt whatever they are.
Your description of this game has been strangely kind of romantic. I don't know if you picked up on
you set the tone.
I know I did, but I didn't know if I need to run with it, so thanks.
As Back for Blood, I mean, you've probably said all that you want to say about this on the back of actually having played it, Tom.
Yeah, and like there's nothing particularly new. Again, I don't know whether it's just coming from a background of having played loads and loads of Left 4 Dead, is that I've really struggled to find new things to say about something that's so similar on the surface to that game. And I think like the success of those games is so reliant on the sort of the tuning of the challenge and how repeatable that is. And it's also like a very resource intensive genre, I think, like in terms of the amount of level you have to create for the amount of time it takes players to blast through, and then the limited number of ways you actually have to make that environment dynamic or interesting on repeat playthroughs. I think it takes more than just like monster makeup these days. Having gone back to Left 4 Dead, it's aged a lot actually. Like if you actually go through that game, the combat's aged to the extent that it's not exciting anymore. And that's more than just familiarity. It's just that I think like the world itself needs to be more dynamic, or something needs to be more exciting about the place itself, to actually make a Left 4 Dead style game in 2021 or 2022 actually stand out. But yeah, I don't know what you guys pulled from it, based on just kind of its surface showing so far.
Given who's making it and the fact that they showed, I think for the first time at E3, the kind of Left 4 Dead style PvP mode, it kind of cemented it in my mind as like, okay, this is like an attempt at Left 4 Dead 3, really.
Right.
Right. And I think in that context, it kind of makes sense. And I think this is something that I really noted as a theme at E3 generally this year, beyond simply, like co-op horde games, was like a lot of things a lot of comfy genres from the sort of late to mid, like noughties into maybe the early 10s, returning with confidence. You know what I mean? Like, we weren't expecting you to miss Left 4 Dead, but we're doing it again, right? When we're kind of going to really roll it out, and that would be something that I apply to several other games that are coming up actually. And so in that light, like I sort of found myself feeling like happy for really, committed like Left 4 Dead PvP fans who've got a new game to play, right? Like I work with one of those, and that's a kind of nice thing to see, when something like this, when a very niche experience like this gets kind of updated, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely more than nostalgia for me, this type of genre, because it felt like unfinished business with Left 4 Dead. It's like, here's an amazing format, a really good idea, and it's something I poured hundreds of hours into with friends, that has rarely been looked at since. So it's I will probably play every variation on this thing until I find the one that recaptures the magic.
Yeah, I have to say, of all of them though, Back for Blood didn't seem the kind of most mechanically thrilling Oh, we'll get to them. We'll get to those. We'll come back to them. Contraband is a new game from Avalanche Studios. Not much to see about it apart from pre-rendered trailer. Suggests it's on some tropical island, but again, that's also co-op. It emphasized being a big open world co-op game. Obviously, that's the feature du jour, I think. Do you have any feelings about this?
Not about this specifically. Co-op open world games, I'm all for though. Very excited to see more of those.
Well, in fact, talking of which, Sea of Thieves announced an update whereby it was going to combine itself with the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
I find it's something really strange about it feels to me like there's such a weird lag between movie properties and the games that come out. I'm thinking about Avengers as well. That it's almost when this comes back, it's like, oh, what, that film series? Okay, well, I mean, people cared about that maybe 10 years ago. And Johnny Depp, he's still cool, right? Oh, wait. So, yeah. What's it doing? I know, thematically, obviously, it's a good fit, but I mean, for the audience playing Sea of Thieves, is Pirates of the Caribbean really kind of, maybe, I don't know.
So, here's the thing. I agree. It's a good fit. And if you're working with Disney, fine. But think of things that Disney also owns. And imagine the trailer where the pirates have to go resurrect or rescue some legendary dead pirate from the briny deep. And it's not Captain Jack Sparrow, it's LeChuck.
Oh, yeah.
The other pirate franchise Disney now owns, I presume, because they own Lucas. And, man, I thought that, like, after trying to figure out why this didn't sit well with me, and I just made myself sad, because I really want Monkey Island Sea of Thieves, that would be fucking amazing. And I think Pirates of the Caribbean is a really logical choice if I was to kind of switch out that emotional response for a practical one. Like, and this will be related to other games as well. There is I was about to say a savviness to it, and then I realized that's like his catchphrase, isn't it? Fuck. But the Sea of Thieves community has been using Pirates of the Caribbean memes as part of their way of, having fun on YouTube and communicating with each other forever. So officially incorporating this stuff or acknowledging it makes sense. The heavy focus on Jack Sparrow, not played by Johnny Depp, but close enough, is super awkward. And I think that part of it hasn't aged well. And I feel like that film franchise hasn't been in the ground long enough for people to get nostalgic for it. I might be wrong, but the last one wasn't that long ago. It doesn't feel like 4 or 5 years, I guess. And it seemed like that series really outstayed its welcome by the time the films went away. So I just am feeling kind of strange about it. And it's interesting because I went and talked to Pip about it, and she's been she's played so much Sea of Thieves, and her interest has been waning anyway. And this otherwise looks like the biggest update it's had in a while, like big new monsters and encounters and things like that. But the fact that it's licensed, I think, has had the effect of making it feel a bit cheap. And that's a shame, because these things aren't. And right. Versus, for example, a big splashy expansion that was just wholly original, or the perfect combination of both worlds, the Monkey Island expansion I wish they'd made, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much better fit, I think, than Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
In that Monkey Island is actually a similarly comic setting with a much more kind of parallel sense of humor to Sea of Thieves' own humor, I think. Whereas Pirates of the Caribbean, it's too slick, too kind of blockbustery to have this sort of slightly offbeat, off-kilter ugliness of Sea of Thieves, sort of grotesque cast and sort of prankish nonsense that happens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it bringing Johnny Depp, or even the spectre of Johnny Depp, into your game seems very ill-advised right now.
Yeah.
I assume that was a decision that was made before his recent lawsuits.
Oh,
anyway,
my brain is absolutely fizzing with Monkey Island tie-in ideas for Sea of Thieves. That's really good. That's really good. I'm just like, legends could be flowing around the world of the notorious Guybrush Threepwood and his fearsome boat, and there's a boss fight that you can unlock, and then the Guybrush boat just immediately capsizes and sinks.
Exactly.
That's what he would do. Oh, that's good. Oh,
just add insults to the sword swings.
Yes.
See? As a premium remote pack or something.
Oh,
God damn it.
LeChuck's a good villain as well. Yeah.
Play the music together on all your instruments.
Buy stuff from Stan. Also capsizes. Yeah. Good.
Anyway.
I think maybe the purpose of a lot of trailers like this is to sort of encourage the audience to think of imagining in their own minds a thing that they would like and then attach that to the product. Obviously not in this particular case because
we've imagined something
different.
We've
imagined come in with a completely different franchise. Anyway, is there more war? We haven't had much war yet.
Well, here's one for you. Battlefield 2042, LeChuck's Revenge.
Finally.
Honestly, you know what? I thought this was the best trailer of the entire thing.
I was excited because it reminded me of Battlefield 3, and that's the last time I had loads of fun with Battlefield.
Yeah.
Kind of near future setting. And it's going to be multiplayer only, I believe, initially. And I'm fine with that, to be honest. I'll happily pay for that game, I think.
Yeah. I was genuinely excited by it. And like, speaking of savviness, I thought both trailers, but particularly the announcement trailer, even as all over the place as it is, did a really effective job of like expressing what's cool about Battlefield in this sort of slow build kind of exciting way, while also having all of these very specific nods to specific Battlefield, not just sort of the sorts of things happen in Battlefield, but in one very specific case, a specific video, the kind of Rendazook jumping out of a plane to fire a bazooka thing.
That's actually what happens. Like, it's that conversation with the audience where it's like, yeah, really dumb stuff happens in Battlefield, and seeing it realised as part of a very expensive trailer for the next thing is just like a nod of like,
right,
we got you, we got you.
And I appreciate it's very kind of like journey inside the baseball for me to kind of praise it as marketing, despite obviously knowing that it made me excited about the game, which is success as marketing. But also, like, I felt like because DICE, I think, are very good at these sort of very cold, stylish feeling environments and places and trailers and things, and there's a real sense of style to it, and there's a sense of craft to it, particularly in like obviously the quality of the animation and so on, but also particularly like the audio mastering on the trailer is fucking amazing. And I appreciate this is like something now where I'm like, that's what I notice is like, holy shit, this is loud but is, it feels right. But also like juxtaposing that with this mounting silliness really, really worked for me in a way that it wouldn't have worked if it had been openly silly from the beginning. And I'm someone who said for a long time that I missed the tone of Bad Company when Battlefield was a little bit more like an episode of the A-Team, and it was a little bit sillier. But actually, I'm kind of here for this weird mixing of styles where it's this combination of like serious military shooter and like Motley Crue is playing in the background, and like a man has just ramped a little ATV off the top of a skyscraper to knock out a helicopter. I really liked it, and it made me realize like, yeah, I'm definitely going to play this. I spent most of the last year playing big multiplayer games with my friends for really obvious reasons, and it's like, yep, tick, we'll play. Thank you.
I thought the first trailer didn't quite hit it off for me for the exact same reasons that you said it was successful. in that, like, I feel like, well, particularly the futuristic Battlefields, but very much this one has quite a sort of like fairly anodyne aesthetic vision of what the future or even future warfare should look like. Like, the tanks just look boring. is my main beef with it. They're just not very interesting. And then the trailer spends the next, I don't know, minute and a half or however long it is, convincing you that it's actually the Battlefield game that I want to play. And I feel like it could have done that from the off. And so the second trailer, which starts in a very much more silly place, and you're grappling between skyscrapers as a tornado rips through the buildings of this cityscape. I mean, that immediately appealed to me in a way in which the sort of like the very serious bomb moment at the beginning of the first trailer just didn't land with me. 12 minutes?
Is that all?
That's how would you even describe this? Like a recursive...
It's one of them time loop games.
Yeah, it seems like you're at home with your wife, and Willem Dafoe breaks in and tells you off, I guess. I'm not quite sure what happens, but it's really bad. And then after 12 minutes, everything resets, and you obviously you can make different choices then in order to change how things play out. I suppose it's like the sort of larger scale 3D evolution of games like Mask, which is beloved of this podcast. Where you're basically a pachinko ball bouncing down these giant pachinko tree of possibilities and ending up in very different places. I don't know that I was convinced by any of the drama within it, but the premise of it is certainly alluring.
I like the idea of that structure being applied to a purely social situation, though. Like the great thing about Mask is that you could sort of theoretically type anything and just throw all social rules in the bin and then watch a simulation failed completely to keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah.
But like with the Left 4 Dead follow-ups, it's an untapped idea to go into a weird social situation, have that kind of get to replay that short but broad scenario over and over again and discover all the different ways it unfolds. As an experimental structure, I like that idea, and I kind of want it to be popular so that other people will make this over and over again.
Short but broad scenario is my wrestling name.
Psychonauts 2. It's a sequel.
Look, nice trailer. Look nice. Sorry, that was yeah.
Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online. They're still alive. They're still going. Is that good?
I kind of I really want to like Fallout 76 because I really like the setting. Like it's probably it's really beautiful, and it almost feels like they've created a platform that a good game might happen in. So I'm happy for it to sort of stick around until perhaps someone tells me that it's good now, and then I would try it. Elder Scrolls Online. I mean, I'm like I just don't. I'm playing some Final Fantasy 14 occasionally. I dipped back into WoW recently for some reason, just because it was there and wanted to sort of see those environments again.
Man, same.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just had a really overwhelming urge to do it. Maybe there's some weird bit of Blizzard marketing just got through to me. But yeah, Elder Scrolls Online is at the bottom of my list. Those things, frankly, and that's just the result of the launch and just the way it looked and the way it felt to play in its initial phase, which is perhaps unfair because these games evolve enormously over the course of the years, and it's been out for a long time now. But you have to show me something pretty special, like almost a 2.0 relaunch of the whole thing to get me interested in Elder Scrolls Online at this point, and I did not see that.
Somerville is another one of the 2.5D Limbo-alikes, but it's actually made by by Jumpship Games, who are founded by some of the alumni of Play Dead, who made Inside and Limbo. It seems kind of similarly stylish and atmospheric. Something about an alien invasion. You have a dog.
And a family.
And a family, but seemingly not for terribly long in the trailer. Yeah. I'm sure that'll be fine. Halo Infinite. Are you excited by the reappearance of Halo? I was.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm really
I think the announcement that the multiplayer side is free is cool.
Yeah.
There you go. I said it. Very good. God, I can't just go through this whole entire show reviewing the trailers. But the Halo 3 multiplayer trailer was also very good and expressed why Halo 3 multiplayer. I'm saying Halo 3 multiplayer because it looked like Halo 3. Halo multiplayer has always been really good. And there's subsequently some stuff they put out, which I thought was really promising about how they're like structuring the business model and rethinking how battle passes work and things like that. It sounded really cool. So the notion there is, I think it's a really good idea that obviously each season has a battle pass, but once you've bought the battle pass, you have it forever. There's no time limit on how long you have to complete it. So, but you can only be contributing progress to one battle pass at a time. So if you don't quite finish the battle pass from 6 months ago that you didn't get the last reward in, you can just activate that one and go level that one up for a bit. And I think that's really an interesting way of expanding, a pretty good way to monetize a free-to-play game. And yeah, otherwise, I loved how playful they're being with the physics of Halo. That seemed really cool. Like using grenades to bounce weapons towards you to, chop people up. That's super cool. I mean, Halo's always had that stuff, but again, seeing it foregrounded is that little note of like, it's one of those powerful things you can do in games marketing. I think is say, hey, we get why you like this, rather than we'll show you a video that suggests we might not.
Yeah, it was interesting how many sort of acrobatic moments were shared between that and the Battlefield trailer. I thought, even down to like a mid-air hijacking. It looked nice. It gave me a very strong sense memory of being driven around in a Warthog by Owen, and then him driving us off a cliff into oblivion.
I knew you were going to mention Owen for some reason, because I've really good memories of being in a vehicle in Battlefield 3. I think that Owen was driving, and we just drove round and around the map as you crashed into things. We just murdered people wholesale through the windows of this truck, and it was an extremely good time. That
nice.
Again completely undermined the serious war setting that it was trying to create.
A Plague Tale: Requiem, which I only wanted to mention because there was a period in like the late 90s, early 2000s where every game was subtitled Requiem, and they seem to have given up on it. I'm glad to see it's come back. Maybe we'll get Origins as well at some point. Big spate of Origins titles, but I'm sure it's going to be a good game.
Plague Tale 3 Requiem-ing. You can repeatedly Requiem. I guess or is it a Mass for the Dead? Is that what Requiem is?
Yes,
technically, yeah. So, yeah. I was going to make fun of it because a Plague Tale implies some sort of ending of humanity anyway. So a second Requiem would be a bit unnecessary, and maybe this game will prove so too. But that's that's based on nothing they've shown. It looks perfectly fine. It's probably quite a reasonably good game.
How about Slime Rancher 2?
Yeah.
I haven't encountered really the Slime Rancher franchise at all, but I know it is beloved, not least of Pip.
It's also
Pip's very excited about this one.
It's good to see it just sort of popping up in between, like, Plague Tale Requiem and the one we'll talk about next, Atomic Heart. And also, it's just, I'm glad that those games are still getting increasingly, actually, I think, equals billing with a lot of these other games. Which is lovely.
Looks really nice.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, Atomic Heart does also really wound me. I mean, I think we've seen like an extended gameplay trailer previously, which didn't feel like there was a big boss fight in it, and it looked like the boss fight was a right slog. So it sort of turned me off. But when this trailer, which is incredibly quick cut, just shows you so many different lurid, exciting things.
Yeah,
it really feels like this Atomic Heart is the sort of inheritor of those sort of weird single player. For the time, big budget games, the BioShocks and the without necessarily being an immersive sim itself, but still like the inheritor of that kind of what's the word I'm thinking of? High concept is the word I'm thinking of. Some sort of kind of wacky high concept setting, probably involving some sort of animatronic fairground environment.
Yeah,
feelings?
really good trailer. Really good trailer.
Good.
God, and yeah, I agree that I was a little underwhelmed by some of the gameplay footage last year, I think, as well. But the consistent inventiveness of those, like, just the character designs is really extraordinary.
Yeah.
That kind of like, that's maybe what I mean, actually. Given that, like, sort of Eastern European / sort of like kind of Russian nuclear horror is now a genre. This is maybe one of the first games in that sort of territory that has that looks and feels substantially different to what else has been done there.
It's definitely the sort of game where I probably would put up with some chunky mechanics and overlong boss fights just to see everything. And there's not many games I have that instinct about, really. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, spectacular design. Also, with spectacular design, possibly one of the games I was most excited to see, because I'd never seen it before, was Replaced, which again appears to be a 2.5D game. Not quite sure what action or control is implied by the demo, so I'm not quite sure what genre it's in. But it's part pixel arts, part voxel, with obviously some depth. Beautiful animation, ridiculously kind of luxurious lighting, considering it's mixing with pixel art. It's got reflections and cool volumetric fog and stuff like that. But the thing that really excited me was this use of the camera, which seems to be seemingly borrowed from martial arts cinematography. I don't know if you spotted this, but there's a bit of fisticuffs at some point in the trailer. And when the character sort of dodges the blow, the camera tilts as though it's anchored to the character's body, which is a thing you see in, like, for example, the Raid 2, where, somebody's head gets slapped into an oven top and the camera sort of tracks it with this really abrupt 45-degree rotate that sort of really sells the motion and the impact. I've never seen that in a game before, and I would never have thought to implement it in a 2.5D pixel art game, side-scrolling game. That seems like a very strange place to put it, but it just stuck out as being, oh yeah, that's a really successful trick that nobody's ever tried before.
I would shout out, I completely agree. That is so weird to see, and in a good way in this context. But it has worked incredibly well for Guilty Gear with their 2.5D rendering. And they use sort of power moves that strike the biggest moves, because obviously they never want to interrupt the flow unless they really want to show you something cool. That will tilt the camera, freeze the frame, move it around 45 degrees just to do that exact type of selling shot. And that's used in Guilty Gear Strive is out now. And in case I forget to mention it later, it's flipping amazing. So good. Such a good beat 'em up series. So it's great to see that actually moving into different 2D, 2.5D formats like this.
Yeah, it never occurred to me to think that it might be a part of the fighting game, but obviously that makes more sense. I don't know exactly what the game is, but it appears to be a cyberpunk story about an AI trapped in a human body. Beyond that, don't know, but it looks fucking amazing.
Yeah,
definitely
gorgeous.
Also amazing looking Forza Horizon 5.
Game of the show, game of E3 for me.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely. It's a big shout, but the reason is not so much the trailer itself, it's the fact that I know that having played Forza Horizon 4 to death, like exactly how it's going to deliver on Mexico, and I'm so excited to just drive around that, crashing into stuff, and I know that there's sort of the variety of terrain that setting provides and how beautiful it will be, and also how accessible the Horizon series is as a way into racing games. I think it's going to be one to really play, even if you don't really think you like racing games yet. Forza Horizon as a series is a really good place to start, because it has this really fun arcadey feel that has a really great driving model underneath it that you can dig into. I always go to bat for Horizon. And this is a great move for the series, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to play it. I like the Horizon games, and it does look incredible. I have to say, even though I am excited for the game, independently of this, all the stuff they were telling us about how attentively they'd rendered all the cacti, it feels a little wasted on a car game.
Oh,
they're telling us all this stuff about how they photogrammetry or whatever, and I want to get out of the car. I want to poke around and get into the dirt, roll around a bit, get stung by a scorpion, that kind of stuff. But can't do that if you're a car.
I love it that they sort of they applied all of the kind of car tech to just your avatar's flaccid human body in an environment that's trying to kill it. So and also have obviously sponsored skin upgrades and carefully licensed NVIDIA products to increase your hardiness in the very hot desert environments full of scorpions.
They were very keen in their, and I think rightfully so, in their presentation to stress the beauty of the landscape the country, its architecture and art and so on. And I'm not sure where in that they'd find time to be like, and be horrified by a scorpion in Forza Horizon 5.
Also, like a minute ago, folks, did I say Nivea or Nvidia?
I think you said Nivea. But we've got to leave it.
I thought I was lost. For a moment there. It's fine.
I don't know which one you said. The recording will know.
Good.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, exactly. Got to make sure Nivea broadcast is working.
Absolutely.
And the last big game of the Microsoft conference was Redfall, aka Left for Red.
Nice.
Nice.
Good? Bad? Pre-rendered? Yes.
Pre-rendered. Yeah. Yes. I mean, I love Arcane's slightly the way they sketch people, this sort of slightly exaggerated, increasingly colourful style. So I thought the character designs were awesome. No idea what the game is going to be like, really. Reminded me of Overwatch, really, for some reason. Something with these really strong characters that you can imagine the team growing and being added to in future with more heroes and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know what else to think about it except vampires are cool.
I thought it tended slightly more towards like slightly Scooby-Doo level horror than what you might expect from Arcane based on their previous games. But despite that, I'm definitely down for any sort of... It's open world, right? That was also one of the promises.
Yeah, I believe so. I've pals working on it, and so like there's not that as in not in a way that means I know anything, just that I'm sort of happy for friends to get to announce a cool thing, particularly at the top of a Microsoft show.
Yeah.
But I get what you mean about the kind of the way that the kind of ability kits sort of really closely define those characters. I'm really interested to see what Arcane do with that formula, because I think, in addition to art, like I think they've got a proven track record of blending interesting magical powers into first-person combat in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
And the trailer kind of gestured that a little bit, but not in a way that you could really attach to gameplay. So I'm really excited to see what exactly that means. Because I trust them to do something cool with that, basically.
Yeah.
More so than just, hey, this character can jump pretty high or whatever, form.
Right. I mean, they're presumably going to bring over some of the sort of acrobatic affordances that you saw in Dishonored, I would imagine. And yeah, like just the promise of being co-op, open world, and with those sort of movement skills that you see from those games, that seems like an exciting premise, regardless of what genre they sort of layer over the top of it.
Yeah,
I'm into it.
Yeah,
for sure.
This was a really strong show for Microsoft. I thought
it was. Yeah. It really was.
Really, really strong. And also, I don't normally get excited about subscriptions. Streaming services. This isn't a streaming service, but the Game Pass is flipping great now. Like it's really, really, really strong. In a way, so I got a new PC the other week finally, and signed up to Game Pass, and there's so much good stuff on there already. And the fact that they're sort of committed to bringing a lot of these games to Game Pass, and a lot of these games are the sort of games where it's even better than a demo. You sort of like you can flutter with it for a month if you like it. If the game thrives, keep on playing it, or just leave it in the library. It's just when the long promised executive hope that games will become a Netflix style subscription service that's been met with good reason with cynicism. I think this is the Game Pass at the moment is an example of it. Might be about to work really, really well.
Yeah,
which is awesome. Actually, I think
we'll see.
What do you think, Marsh?
I just don't have trust in the incentives that are created by these monopolies for the good value to be retained, and for it not ultimately to choke developers who are outside of that ecosystem. And ultimately, once they have a stable base of subscribers, there's no longer the incentive for them to provide the games at the sort of pace that they're currently cramming them in. We've seen that to some extent with the video subscription model. I feel like Netflix isn't what it used to be in a lot of ways. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. There's certainly a greater breadth of programming on Netflix than there was, but I do sense that maybe the quality of that programming has nosedived. Do you feel the same way?
I think that's I think they're still producing prestige stuff, but I think what Netflix as a platform has allowed to happen is for lots of very niche ideas to be pursued with a lot of more money than would otherwise potentially happen in other services. So the fact that like Castlevania has a TV series on there and people absolutely love it.
It's fucking great, is why.
Yeah, I'm towards the end of season 2 and I'm really into it now. So the first season is kind of like good hacker / vampire stuff, but actually really, really good characters in it and really, really good stuff. And that I don't see that happening on many other services, to be honest. And it's interesting that Netflix are kind of thinking about moving into gaming because they've experimented in lots of different ways with games as a subject, not least with wasn't Charlie Brooker's multiple choice drama on there. That's also quite gaming literate. They're also like The Witcher as a series. I really enjoyed that Witcher series. Thought it was really well produced. Thought Henry Cavill was great. That was Netflix, wasn't it?
Yep,
it was. Yeah.
Season 2 coming out. So the way they've picked up video games and based dramas on them, and admittedly, the Witcher series they say was based on the books, but I think like the reason that gets commissioned and made is because of the huge popularity of The Witcher 3 as a
and there's a close relationship there now, anyway. I think because CD Projekt own the whole enterprise, I believe. So
right. That I don't see. It's very hard to draw parallels with between like a TV and movie service and a Game Pass like this. I do agree that like I do wonder where the return comes to developers from this, because in Game Pass you can choose to buy the game and own it forever, but that creates interesting incentives, doesn't it? Like there's almost never a reason to do that, I've found, based on especially if a game like The Outer Worlds or something like that, a game that's 12 hours and you might really enjoy. How much, is that a good deal for a developer who makes that type of game, or is this just another incentive to create living games like Warframe or something like that gets updated constantly with season passes and stuff that actually keeps people coming back for more and potentially wanting to spend more? I don't know.
How many different game subscription services do you think you would be able to stomach subscribing to?
2. That's I've plugged that out of nowhere. I've absolutely plugged that. Like I say something like 1 or 2, but then if a game, it's Company of Heroes 3 to pull a series that I love out of thin air. If that was tied to a different platform, I would download that as well, to be honest. So it could be any number. And I'm already in that situation with just game stores and browsers. I've got them all pinned. I've got Xbox here, EA here. I've got Epic Game Stores here. Obviously, I've got Steam, Ubisoft service. It's called Ubisoft Connect now, I think, instead of Uplay. I've already got a huge list of these things that I boot up already. I can't see there being much of a difference between just logging into one given subscription service over another.
I was thinking of just a purely economic basis. Like, I mean, there's probably a top to the number of video, entertainment products I wish to subscribe to, and I already hit my limit with like film and television subs, I think, probably. But those are things which are much more kind of easily communally shared amongst people in your household than video games are. I wonder if there is a lower number of whether essentially you throw your lot in with one or the other, assuming that you're not, just made of money.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. Should we move on to some other conferences?
Yeah.
Sure.
I only watched 2 others, so I've only listed 2 others. I think some other stuff happened, but it we'll probably skip over.
I think the main thing we'll end up missing is Nintendo, and all I will say to that is Breath of the Wild 2 looks really nice, and so does the Metroid thing.
Yeah,
that's it.
I agree.
The Ubisoft conference, I think the thing I was most excited about from that was the Rainbow Six Extraction, which I think Tom Francis said was left 6 dead. Haha. Which is, it appears to be a horde survival / infiltration thing, using the diverse classes of Rainbow Six and presumably some of the scenic destruction. I thought, interestingly, the enemy design was extraordinarily bland.
It's really weird, wasn't it? And sorry, go on. Yeah, I thought so.
Well, it is weird because Ubisoft aren't short of excellent concept artists, and I'm sure they could have cooked up something more ferocious or nightmarish than these sort of just fairly uninteresting creatures. But I wonder if that was like a calculated aesthetic choice in order to not sort of push away people who might play Rainbow Six but wouldn't necessarily play a horror game. I would think that there was quite a big crossover in that Venn diagram, so I wouldn't think there was that much hazard for that, but they certainly steered away from it being too gribbly or gory. Just the idea of combining Rainbow Six's characters and destruction with a sort of Left 4 Dead sort of horde thing does sound very tempting to me. I think that's a really good combo. And probably more exciting than mechanically for me than Back 4 Blood promises to be.
Yeah, there seems to be an interesting thing with the enemies, which sort of look like alien crash test dummies. They often seem to be dormant until they're angered or until they're aware of your presence, which might be a way of just like making extremely clear stealth and active combat states that that allow people to use the Rainbow Six gadgets and the fun kind of prep stage of the Rainbow Six contest in the context of a co-op Left 4 Dead style scenario, so that you could use all your gadgets and do a really good stealth run where you kill all of the enemies before they even wake up, and that's equally as valid as going in and just shooting everyone through walls and having a cool, fun gun time. But yeah, I might be assuming too much based on what they've shown.
The only other two things from the Ubisoft conference was just some more sights of Far Cry 6 and the first glimpse of Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora.
This is the thing I saw.
Yeah. I'm not terribly into the Avatar franchise. I can't imagine that many people are. But it looked pretty, I guess.
This is the thing. No one knows what became of the cultural impact or lack of Avatar, right? Like, that is just a mystery that we're not allowed to know the answer to, I assume. Like, where did it come from? Where did it go? Cotton Eye Joe logic. And yeah, in that trailer, it did kind of remind me, like, one, I think how there's a couple of things. One, it's a really pretty setting for a game, and I think probably quite a good match for Ubisoft's ability to render these very vibrant open worlds. In this case, a kind of alien, forest wilderness. And then it also reminded me of how I think maybe the new movie will come along and change this opinion, but like, I have always found Avatar's world building to be I think it was pretty staggeringly naive at the time, and I don't think it's aged especially well. And so, as analogies go for imperial forces or colonialist forces rolling in and sort of mercilessly suppressing indigenous peoples, it's not subtle. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but actually, interestingly, part of me looking at it was like, this is so cartoonish and kind of over the top, but at the same time, maybe a video game is a better place for this than a film ever was. So I had this sort of strange realization coming through that of like, maybe Avatar should just always have been a video game, right? Like, and in that case, this is good, he said, with a real big question mark at the end.
Yeah. I think even for even by the quality of video game standards, the name Unobtainium for an ore is spectacularly bad, and that's just one corner of that universe. And obviously, a huge kind of colonialist overtones that made the first film kind of horrible. And
it's had its heart in the right place, though. It wasn't siding with the colonialists.
Yeah, the hero. It was. Like it, that's what I mean by naivety, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
like and I think that's the thing, is that the film is a cartoon. It's practically a Disney cartoon, and like if you reinsert the music and the songs, you've just got Pocahontas. That's the film it is, and that doesn't solve its problems. Like
Pocahontas, a mech doesn't pull a knife, which is the thing that's endlessly fascinated me as a concept.
Right, but broadly speaking, though, like,
no, let's dig down onto this one thing with the mech.
Exactly. Yeah. Apart from that one thing,
yeah,
it's the same, right? Yeah. There's a cool raccoon. I can't remember anything else that happens in Pocahontas or Avatar. But yeah. So I think I guess what I'm saying, like, who knows how they'll handle it, what kind of game it will be. It certainly is not going to be the most. It's certainly not going to be the most sort of stretched political metaphor that Ubisoft output in open world form, because as Giancarlo Esposito explained, a younger generation, many of them haven't even heard of Ceausescu. So, what are they even going to do? And so, yeah, I was sort of taken by it, seeing it as a video game and going, oh yeah, this actually kind of makes sense in this context, but who knows? It was, again, one of those trailers that doesn't leave much to actually kind of root your kind of expectations in.
It's weird, this relationship it has with games, because I remember when the film came out, there was a big sort of hoo-ha in the game community, sort of, because, the video game community is so desperate for approval from larger or older media, rather, that they were like, oh, but it's got a character who straps himself in and becomes a different person, an avatar, if you will. Look, Senpai noticed us, sort of thing. And now it is actually a video game in which you are, playing the same characters. I wonder if there'll be some sort of meta thing where you are playing a human who is playing, I forget what the indigenous species is called.
Na'vi.
Smurfs. Oh, God, yes.
Why do I remember this shit? What the fuck is wrong with me?
I play as a Na'vi. They get to plug into dragons and ride them around. That seems like a thing you do in a video game. If it's got that, I'll play it. Otherwise, I don't care.
I want to be Big Sigourney Weaver. Fight a mech with a knife. The Squeenix conference began with Guardians of the Galaxy, aka Gary Barlow's Space Crusade. Did you think this landed? Because I came away from this feeling quite positive about it, but Graham hated it.
I think having played and quite liked, until I stopped playing it forever, the Avengers game, I kind of understand that, like, they have to they can't do the cinematic the likenesses. That's just a thing. They're going to have to do comics adaptations. And I know for a fact people will get used to the fact that the Star-Lord man doesn't look like Chris Pratt. They'll just get used to it. It'll be fine, And that aside, I thought it was quite fun.
If they had used Chris Pratt, he would very much look like the default character creator churn out that you'd expect from a game of this type anyway. So it feels weird to complain about the lack of his likeness.
Yeah, right. If anything, they added more characters.
It's not Thor. Yeah, it's not Chris Evans.
I thought it was a strange choice to have Star-Lord be the character you play in this, because he has the least interesting of all the combat styles in it. He just sort of peppers things with bullets, and that seems to be it. And then he has an ultimate attack, which is to pepper things with bullets.
That is 90% of video games, Marsh.
Yeah, I know, but I thought, given that you have these other characters in your group who are fighting alongside you, I was expecting. In fact, when I first saw it, I thought it was going to be Guardians for Galaxy. I thought it was going to be another co-op multiplayer game, but it isn't, and you don't even get to switch between the members of your Guardian group, clan, whatever it is, party. Yeah.
I was hoping for something a bit more like Final Fantasy 15, where you control Noctis as a main character, but the other characters that you're with, for their special moves, you can sort of tell them to do those when they're powered up, but they also help you in sort of impromptu ways throughout the fight that makes them really fun to play alongside. So they'll suddenly help you with an attack, or they'll set up a big combo for you. and it really makes them seem as though they have some autonomy, and the AI is pretty good, and it looks absolutely spectacular when it happens. You're rewarded with extra experience when it happens, and that game is all about friends, creating friendship, which is the theme of this podcast. And so I was kind of hoping that perhaps an unreasonable expectation was stuff to happen like that, where Groot would come in and sort of help you out, and maybe because they seem to be hanging around you all the time, right? Like they seem to be around you, Star-Lord.
They do seem to attack independently, but you can also direct individuals from your team to make an attack. So I think you can set up combos, but I think you may have to have an active role in it. And maybe that stuff's on a time down. I couldn't quite tell. I did find it difficult. I thought some of the vocal performances all existed within a pretty similar sort of range of pitches that all the male characters. And when there was like extraneous sound going on, like rain or just battle, I found it very difficult to pick out who the different characters were who were speaking, unless they said something which was, especially evocative of their particular character. Which, seems like a mistake, but never mind.
Which one of you is the raccoon? Shouts Marsh at the television.
Was it unfair to dunk on Chris Pratt? I liked him
No. I mean, like you're right though that like if they had, I guess people's
appeal, isn't it?
It's always the challenge of making these games so that like those characters are now so embedded. A particular form of those characters is now so embedded in the public consciousness that people inevitably revolt when they get a version that isn't exactly the one they know. And I don't know how a game like this avoids it. In fact, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is in a better place than most to avoid it because it really centers around Star-Lord. Right, people will accept an off-brand Groot. I've always said that. An Aldi rocket, a bootleg Drax, and also my wrestling name. And so I think ultimately like that initial kind of aversion. Actually, when people pushed through it, I thought it was quite a fun trailer. It really reminded me of like Tales from the Borderlands and stuff like that same energy. And it made me realize, I think, in turn, how much Borderlands owes to those sort of wackier elements of cosmic Marvel, but that's a slightly different kind of conversation.
It did make me miss that Avengers game. I really had a nice time with it for the bit I played, and then it seemed to just sort of gone extremely quiet for a long time.
It's still on my PlayStation downloading patches, so I assume
yeah, me too.
It's there. And like we could talk about having gone away, but all either of us need to do to play it is go and play it. But will you?
No.
Me neither.
No, I won't.
Will you, however, play Babylon's Fall, a game whose name I've written down but do not recall in any shape or form?
That rhymed in a nice way.
And
that's all I have to say about that. I don't remember which one this was.
Life is Strange, True Colors.
Okay. Yeah, that looked nice.
Did.
Oh boy.
So.
I'm just so desperate for us to get to the game from the end of the Squeenix conference that like all of my other memories have gone.
I will say that it was amusing to me that it positioned empathy as being a particular psychic power rather than a thing that people experience. If they
rather a terrible burden.
Or at least a default part of consciousness.
That's my double-edged X-Man power. Just being sad because someone else is disappointed by anything. Plugging into Cerebro to just have people be a little bit upset by a new video game trailer and feeling every inch of that. Terrible.
Well, should we do it then?
I really want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about this.
Stranger of Paradise. Final Fantasy Origin.
A man in a Top Man shirt starts on Chaos Outside and All Bar One.
It was really channeling some basic early 2000s PS3 charmlessness, I thought.
I honestly...
That was very kind, Marsh, that description.
Charm is a circle. You can come all the way around. I found. Yeah. And this is... So it's Team Ninja making a Final Fantasy brawler action game, I guess, starring the 3 least inspired characters ever seen, extraordinarily uninspired, so much so that it becomes a kind of art set in a location, I guess, featuring some things, and it is all a prequel, I believe, to Final Fantasy 1. Which is crazy. You know, the actual, like, lovely cartoony little bubbly warriors of, like, Final Fantasy 1. And I love this. It's like Final Fantasy was given to a Hollywood studio to adapt in 2002. And it was given to the team that made, like, Van Helsing or something. You know what I mean? Like, Hugh Jackman was in this, right? Just post X-Men. I don't know why that's on my mind. And it's incredible. It's a strange combination of tastelessness and just absolute unfathomable stylistic choices, and a man saying that he is here to kill chaos over and over and over again in like a 2-minute trailer. So good. 10 out of 10. Game of the show.
To keep you updated on YouTube's take on the trailer, so far, 7.2 thousand upvotes, 8.2 thousand downvotes. Split the community on YouTube.
Wow.
Yep. So it is why some people have found charm in this one.
It's there. It is absolutely there.
Leader comment, 5.3k upvotes. Something tells me this guy wants to kill chaos. Which speaks to the main problem with the script of the trailer, which, like, a human being can't have probably interacted with. Well, I mean, how many stages of approval throughout the whole process, from it being written to go to editor and then go to voice actor and then going to whoever cuts together the trailer? At what point does someone go, Tesla chaos a lot, doesn't he?
This is the thing. Like, and then there's that bit where I've forgotten the name of what's the name of the Final Fantasy 1 villain? Is it, I want to say Garland.
Yeah, Garland.
Yeah, Garland. And, like, you know, and this lady voice cuts in to say, there's a knight, he's missing. He was with you, his name was Garland. And then Dude McMahon yells, I'm here to kill chaos. But maybe he is Garland. No, I am chaos. Good.
Cool.
Good. Great. The fact that the 2 companions look like they're from different games. Like, all 3 main characters look like they're from different games. You have the edgy one from a skating game in the middle. You have a leather daddy from Final Fantasy 15, I guess. And, like, a pirate. Why are they having an adventure together? But why not? And I think you hit on something really important, Tom, and I don't want to bang on about this wonderful game too much. Maybe that's not possible. It's that all of this is obviously intentional because it's a video that exists. And as far as I understand, short of things being generated by an AI, which this might have been, that doesn't just happen, you know? Like, what does Stranger of Paradise mean? You know, I mean, Marsh, you were saying you wanted the word origins back. You got it. You got it, buddy.
Oh, they could have thrown in a Requiem there as well. What is Requiem of Paradise?
That should be a pretty good name.
I think it's the fact also it's attached to Final Fantasy, which, again, is such a, like, love it or hate it, extremely lavish series.
Yeah.
And as much as, you know, that series is full of nonsense words for heaven and hell, and it's all about sometimes Ragnarok, and it just picks and chooses from its earthly mythology to create its creatures. Somehow this sort of is so empty of all of that. It's just weird to even, like, they didn't even put a chocobo in it. Or did they? Did I miss the chocobo?
Well, that's the thing, is it's totally joyless, but in a way that it manages to make me really happy, which is a strange kind of combination of things to achieve, right? Like, because the notion of like a really heavily action-based Final Fantasy game is by no means a terrible one. And like Team Ninja is obviously one of the companies that can and should be making that. It's just, I don't get it. Like, and if one thing you can say for Final Fantasy is like they typically have pretty strikingly drawn protagonists, right? And there has never been a more naughties dude than the dude what they drew. And like, I understand that in the game itself it's a little bit more of an RPG, or it has those systems, you can equip loads of different armor types. Like, I've seen screenshots where that protagonist is dressed up in all sorts of crazy armor, and it looks much more like a video game. Whereas the choice, it's a choice, I think, unless an accident happened in a way that they can't, like, to have him just be wearing a t-shirt, chinos, and gloves in the trailer. but like, the combination of a black t-shirt, chinos, and gloves makes you look like a murderer. And I guess he is, because he is fighting a lot of like demon dogs by causing like big lollipop crystals to appear in their mouths before headbutting them to death. But like, not in the way that it really intended. And like, more than anything else, I think maybe the thing that just twigged for me is he looks like the lead singer of a new metal band that has been like rotoscoped into this game in like a promo kind of way, right? Like, it's a music video, or maybe like he was like, you know, pre-order DLC because their song plays over the credits or something. It's so good. It's so good.
You know what it reminds me of is there was like a period, I don't know if this came to PC, but when I was working on Edge, we got a lot of these sort of games on PS3, which were Japanese-made games in the sort of wake of Gears, which were explicitly made by Japanese developers, but for the Western market. And their only value was as an indictment of how we are seen by other nations. As I could tell, they were all incredibly grey and grim gunmetal games where the characters were just either meat men or just your bargain basic top shop boy. And it just, Quantum Theory was the name of one of those games. I remember it was so terrible that it's like a support group of journalists formed amongst those who had to review it. Strong Quantum Theory vibes from this.
Apparently, I found the best page on the internet. So I was trying to find out what the character's name is. The generic. Do you guys know? If you don't know, can I guess?
Bath, knife, sword. Man.
All right. Tom's gone with Final Fantasy. Marsh?
I think it's James. Going with James.
Jack. His name is Jack.
Yes, I knew it was going to be something basic.
But this is my favorite. This might be the best thing I've ever seen on the internet. He already has a wiki page on the official Final Fantasy wiki, right? Massive fandom wiki page, right? He gets 2 sentences in his entire bio. This is it, and it is perfect. Jack is a character from Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. His goal is to kill Chaos. And the kill Chaos has a citation footnote, and if you click that, it takes you to the trailer, which is all the citation you need for this point. The full body like art for this character does reveal that his t-shirt is actually like part tunic. It kind of becomes like slightly dress-like on the left when it's untucked, but he is otherwise wearing chinos. So, just spectacular, honestly.
Boy, does this remind me so much of Dark Sector by Digital Extremes before they made Warframe?
That's exactly around the Quantum Theory time. You've really hit the...
It's the whole colour palette as well. Just bluey grey. It was a whole thing.
Thank God that ended.
What was the name of the main character? Was it Jack? I've got to find out. Hayden. Cool.
Nice. I'm now looking into every aspect of this. The actor who plays Jack previously played Big Locomotive in The Little Engine That Could.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, he was actually in Tony Hawk's Proving Ground. The energy, it's really there.
Oh, wow, gosh.
Incredible. Incredible. You shouldn't let me Google things while we're recording a podcast, but this has all been very exciting.
You folks going to play this one? Also,
No.
watch the Fallout. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
A pretty good E3, I thought, despite, Sony not having any kind of presence whatsoever.
Weird choice, that, wasn't it?
The wrong one.
I would agree completely. So, it's been like an increasing, like a flex among major developers to not show up at E3. But this time, in this current situation, they might as well not exist to an audience if they don't show anything around the time that excitement is happening online for this. So it feels like they're just gone. It's not like they're biding their time and about to produce something brilliant or show a really cool new thing or a suite of new games. It just feels like they're not there.
Yeah.
So it's just that the absence, it's like, it's worse than having a negative opinion about something. It's about, they're just not there. Not worthy of consideration, not part of the thought, not part of the discussion at all. And that's surely just the worst, from a marketing perspective, probably the worst thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I had quite a good time with the rest of it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the rest of it.
I thought, I've been basically thrown, like, I can't really, go. I've got nowhere to go from I Want to Kill Chaos now, to be honest. So if...
What was your game of the show, other than...
Stranger in Paradise, Final Fantasy
Other
Origin.
than Stranger in Paradise.
I keep going towards thing of the show, and it was those two nice men who were good friends. But I mean, I guess Elden Ring is the game I'm legitimately most excited for. But I'm really
that was so expected that I'd be excited for it, though. That it kind of doesn't count.
Yeah, I think so. I think the two biggest surprises for me, and I struggle to pick between them, were Battlefield 2042 and Halo Infinite, which are both kind of boring picks because they both are so obviously like, hey, this looks like a prettier version of something I know I like. But both of them, I think, surprised me with the quality of their presentation. So there's that. I think in terms of, like, I'm intrigued by this, but I didn't feel like I saw enough to, like, really, like, put it on the map. I put Redfall in that category. Yeah. Like, cool characters, really cool setting, bollocks things. I like vampires a lot, so that's nice. But you're
big goth.
I know. Look, all I've done in the last year is slowly turn into, like, Dracula, but the What We Do in the Shadows sort of Dracula. So that's that's exciting. In terms of something like wholly new that I find legitimately exciting on its own creative merits, not because it's got the most incredible trailer that I've ever seen. I think probably Replaced in that case, out of all of them, for the reasons that you outlined. I thought that really looks extraordinary. No idea what it is, what happens when I push a button, but it looked amazing.
Yeah. Tom, other than Horizon 5?
I agree with Battlefield, actually. It's something about it that really kind of rekindled my excitement for the series. And I've really tried to get into the last few, actually. And I sort of enjoy them. I kind of admire them as perfectly good games, but they just haven't kind of grabbed me. I think this one might. And apart from that, whatever Weezer decides to do next. Who knows how that will go.
Marsh?
Yeah, well, sorry to be boring, but I have the same picks as you. After being slightly lukewarm on the first trailer of Battlefield, as soon as a grappling hook came out in the second trailer, I was all the way in. And same with Halo Infinite. Just I know they are such known quantities. These games, but I'm definitely sold on them as a result. But in terms of surprises. Replaced was really blew me away because partly because it looks gorgeous, but it's also a style I'm interested in reproducing. It's almost attainable. Not that I could animate for shit, but I like pixel art and Rainbow Six Extraction. I'll add that actually. I'm interested to play that.
Quick Dark Sector update, by the way. I know we all keen to hear this. Somehow, the plot summary on Wikipedia has been deemed by moderators that it may be too long or excessively detailed, and it's inquiring for moderators to cut it down. Which, for a game from that era, is remarkable. And it's a whole essay.
Whoever wrote the too long summary of Dark Sector on Wikipedia, I see you.
I see you writing the new Final Fantasy action game from Team Ninja.
Exactly. I think that's all the E3, is it?
We've definitely missed some stuff, I'm sure. But,
100%. And the stuff we did talk about, a lot of it could have been wrong. So let's move on swiftly. This podcast is going to be a little bit different. We had so much E3 to get wrong that we're not going to do questions this week. We're instead going to use the time that we normally do questions to do the thing we normally have done before this and talk a little bit about what we've been playing. And we should start with you, Tom, because you have finally received a PC.
Got my new PC. I ordered this the first week of December 2020. I forgot what year it was then for a moment. And it's been a long time coming. Obviously, people's global enthusiasm for cryptocurrency mining has put graphics cards in short supply. And for a moment, I thought, like, if my new PC arrives, I could just sell the graphics card, pay for the PC. But such as my love of PC gaming and my inherent laziness, I've decided just to sort of keep it and boot it up and play loads and loads and loads of games for exactly 10 minutes before I get bored and try a different one. And this is very much the kind of streaming service being overwhelmed by so much stuff at once. It's like, let's reinstall Company of Heroes 1, Dawn of War 3, Hitman 1, and stuff that like has never run like satisfactorily on mobile PC that now would be absolutely silky smooth at like 144 frames a billionth of a second or whatever on a really nice new monitor. And I can confirm that video games are beautiful. And after 10 minutes of play, they are all as beautiful as each other in some ways. Unless there's some like really egregiously kind of horrible thing about the sound or the visuals. Everything, like every level of detail in again, it's artistically well directed, sort of just becomes the norm as you go into the universe. I don't know if you guys think this. Like, so I had this. I was like, I'll play Metro because it's got fancy DLSS fast frame rate technology and it's got ray tracing and all the reflections will be beautiful and the lighting will be beautiful, and it is. And then I find myself sort of walking around going, "Wow, look at that light source! That what a delicious puddle! Very good, very good." And then find myself actually completely utterly bored by the game after sort of 10 to 12 minute period, and being like, "Well, I love Metro. I love what it's about." And the different kind of reclusive and insular gangs that you meet, societies that you meet in the Metro, how you get to sort of tour them. Really good mix of kind of monster combat in corridors, and then suddenly going into a kind of a refugee habitat that looks incredible. It's rendered with more detail than I've ever seen a settlement rendered in. And I'll look around and I'll sort of like soak it up, and that's just so well made and so beautiful. And then I'll go back into the monsters and be like, yeah, I've done all this, so I'll stop playing immediately. Yeah, so I booted up Hitman 3, and I played the first level of that one, which is set in a Dubai skyscraper at the very top. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And there's a reason like that the James Bond license is so good for this developer, because the Hitman games have been James Bond games for a while, albeit much smarter than James Bond deserves, I think, as a franchise. But in terms of actually just fashion and James Bond's vision of high society and what it looks like for a character like Bond to go and interact with that, I think like 47 and his amazing suit and the way he goes into parties, and this was true of, I think, even the first Hitman reboot game, or was it the second one, where you go into like a fashion show in a Parisian manner, I think. And the whole style of the thing is just absolutely beautiful and pristine. But then I got annoyed by clambering prompts and how inconsistently they were applied. It's one button does everything for climbing and also, dropping down from ledges and that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's inconsistent. And I got irritated by that. And I've just find myself like going down the tunnel trying to find the game of least resistance, and like for all of these, it ended up being Warframe, which is I kind of, if I was to ask myself the question, if of all of these dozens and dozens of games that you've got to try on a brand new machine, which is the one do you think you would kind of rest with and really enjoy? I would have liked to have thought it would be a game like Hitman that was this beautiful immersive sim, beautifully designed sort of puzzle box levels, just a really exceptional, like Hitman 1, 2, and 3 together as a package. It's just that's hundreds and hundreds of hours of just amazing immersive sim playground fun. But I end up playing Warframe, guys, and I wonder, like, have I just become? Am I just a less imaginative player? Because Dishonored 2 is on this list as well. A game that ran terribly on my old PC. It's absolutely gorgeous on the new one. Looks incredible, and just the amount of imagination that has gone into the design of just the architecture and the color palette of every level, and that's even before you look at the way the levels are constructed. That should be why is that not exciting me? Why am I not like able to get into that now? Why is it the kind of 5-minute plow through a whirlpool, get to the other end and earn some experience game? Warframe, actually the one I've alighted on, and I kind of want to blame lockdown, but is it that, or is it that the way I've associate games with downtime has changed, like in a way that I would formerly, a few years ago, just want to play kind of a really fun, gritty skirmish game against like the hardest AI and Company of Heroes and really enjoy that and get something out of it and have the energy to do that. That seems to have gone away a bit. And I wondered if you guys have experienced similar with your gaming habits.
100%. Yeah, like I got my new PC in February, ordered I think in November or something. So similar, not quite as long, but actually not as long a wait, but similar process of having to wait as it ran the gauntlet of crypto nerds and Gauntlet of the Crypto Nerd, my roguelike coming. No, all I have done with it since is play half of Cyberpunk, half of Resi Village, a shitload of Monster Train, a little bit of Destiny, and then just a bucket of sort of, Warzone and sort of assorted kind of like bottomless grind, short session, multiplayer competitive games that I can just sort of fall face down into and make a fun burbly noise with my mouth in.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing in that statement I disagree with. Love to do that, and this is so lame. I actually it's actually a brilliant program called Wallpaper Engine on Steam, which is just animated backgrounds. I just played with that for half an hour. It's just like loads of cool, fun settings you could download with different moving images, and you can change the color palettes. You can change, how all the particle effects work. And I've gotten more out of that than a lot of games recently. Which is, I don't mean this to be an indictment of games or to suggest that I've fallen out of love with games. So apparently I have a bit based on everything I've just said.
I think it's more that the role they play in life evolves, right? Like I found myself less able, and I feel like we've been answering questions and asking ourselves questions about like, how does this relationship change in every possible permutations since we've been doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And, part of it is time. I think a lot about, to return to E3, like the fact that E3 this year had this year is the 10th anniversary of Skyrim. That hurt. Fuck you, Bethesda, for saying that. Like, because it also means it's the 10th year of me getting into the games industry, because Skyrim came out the month I started a PC Gamer. And I remember, like, staying on your couch during the week, Tom, and then going back to my parents' house on the weekends, basically just to play Skyrim, right? Just because that's all I wanted to do was like, have these vivid memories of like all right, pub after work on the Friday, then straight onto the train, then back to my parents' house, then play Skyrim from like Friday night until Sunday night, then back on the train so that I can crash on the couch in time to get to work on Monday. And like, that's just not how I consume games anymore. That's just don't do like that. And that's one of the reasons I haven't finished Cyberpunk yet and all these other things. And then the flip side of that is like, I sort of need predictability from my entertainment, but for some reason I am sort of pathologically incapable of just watching television like a normal person. So what I need is a game that affects some of the passivity of television, but with the additional kind of engagement and immersion that comes with the medium I like and prefer. And so that means I play loads of, just sort of deck builders and like I say, tons of, multiplayer games where I could just play like a session or two and feel like I went on a little adventure and did something and then got out again. I have found, though, that like my MMO thing has definitely died off in the last couple of months, but I feel like it's not necessarily been replaced with something kind of worthier from a game sense. But a lot of this I attribute to just, whatever kind of like ennui is inevitable this deep into such an unprecedented experience of being stuck in a room.
It's got to have an effect, doesn't it? And it's,
yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's just like it's got to have an effect. Like
it's like well, how does your relationship with games change as you get older, as your responsibilities change, and also as you're trapped in your house for a year and a half? Like which of those, all of these factors.
That kicker is pretty significant. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it's not even like I think I completely agree with you, particularly about requiring a predictable amount of entertainment from a thing each time I choose to boot it up or do anything else. And maybe that's the kind of short-term, lovely sort of little food rewards that you get from something like Warframe or from another game like a deck builder where you can just do one run in 10 minutes is just perfectly tuned for that attitude, because you just, especially when time can be more and more easily interrupted. And so it has to be something like I could walk away from at any minute, which puts pay to a lot of MMO stuff, and it puts pay to a lot of Dishonored stuff. And there's the stuff where I feel like if I want to get the most out of this game, I just need to settle down for 2 hours with this, and that's not life anymore. And increasingly, terrible phrase, increasingly fewer games deliver that compromise, and it's not. I don't know how games are supposed to adapt to that, because obviously I'd love every game to do everything I want, but I would have, like, as games age as a medium and as players kind of age, whether we'll see games that are sort of targeted at old, ancient, crusty, hollowing people like us.
Do, in a way. I feel like, in a way, I think the fact that we're having this conversation shows that the whole casual game conversation is completely dead. Like, it's absolutely dead. Yeah. Like, any sort of kind of notion that those sorts of games weren't games, didn't play a role, has died, as I think it's clear that those patterns and those sort of pleasures of slowly building something or simply engaging with something, in order to kind of get a bit of feedback and kind of entertain yourself, are just as valid as anything else, because those sort of mechanics, as they crop up in other games I like, entertain me, and I think there's something to be said for that. And yeah, like I'm sort of, I think it's more than anything else, I think it's simply a sign the games are changing, and what people get out of games is changing. And like, it'll be interesting to see what the broader effect that this has, because I don't think it's simply a certain generation aging out of the way that they used to play games or anything like that. I think it's also a testament to the way that the role of games in people's lives is changing. And there's a broader point to be made there, and I don't know if I kind of want to get too deep into it, but I would say that it's worth observing that, like, the install base for something like Fortnite is absolutely astronomically huge. You know what I mean? And that is not because that number of people want to play Battle Royale. It is because the these games play a role in people's lives that is pretty broad ranging, and because they provide lots of different levels of engagement, people are able to scale those experiences to the kind of thing that they want. They're also fundamentally social, and all these other things help them kind of squeeze their way into people's lives. And I think at the bottom of that is that a very old notion about what games are, which is tied to the old kind of aversion to things like casual games, is dying. The notion that games are necessarily about challenge is dying. The notion that games are something that should last a certain amount of time and you should complete it is dying. And not to say that it will die in the sense that these experiences will not be available to people that want them for the foreseeable future. But I do feel like you're seeing those concepts ebb, and companies catch up with that idea at different speeds. And I find that really interesting. And I think, you know, and what that leaves you is this sense of games is instead as a kind of an accessible source of interactive entertainment that you can pick up and put down. And that's what Warframe is, right? That's the role that they've come to play in life in very different circumstances. And yeah, I just find this whole thing kind of telling of a particular way in which the medium as a whole, I think, is adapting variously quickly and slowly to a change in the way that games are being used and who is using them.
I find this fascinating in particularly single player open world games. A lot of the kind of as much as I malign the tower system for Ubisoft just because it's become so staid, I think. Nonetheless, like that is a really good way of chunking up a very big space into small bits of time that you can allocate. So there are a set number of activities in a Ubisoft Assassin's Creed game, and the latest Assassin's Creed games in particular, I think, have been excellent at generating a sense of expectation for each activity. So if there's kind of like a monster hunt, you know, you're going to go there and you're going to slay some boars, and there might be a mini boss there, and it'll take about 20 minutes. And the game's really good at teaching you that. And as much as it might feel boring to go through the tutorial bits of those games, which can last hours, you ultimately go ahead in Valhalla with a sense of here's what this escapade will take up in my life. And you've taught me this quietly without explicitly saying this is a 20-minute activity. And maybe that's the way a lot of some of these games will move, especially this is interesting in the wake of something like Breath of the Wild,
right? Which
is almost the opposite thing. It's like go forth and experiment and find your own challenges and let them be as long as you want them to be. And this reminds me a lot of what my partner has said about open world games. She absolutely loves Skyrim. Absolutely loves it. I love it too. It's brilliant. I reinstalled it as part of, it's tradition when you get a new PC to install Skyrim. Subscribe to loads and loads of mods for it in the Steam Workshop. And then when I booted it up, in the intro sequences, you ride down into the first cutscene you're a prisoner in a horse-drawn carriage, and might immediately start doing somersaults sideways to the point where it like went forward further than the cutscene anticipated, and then there was a physics interaction with the carriage in front, and that went into the sky. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm home. This is PC gaming. This is what I want." But what my partner said was like a complete lack of direction in the game. It's completely instantly off-putting to the extent that it's just it's like a blank page, and you're like, "What am I supposed to do? This? Where is the fun? What am I supposed to do to engage with this thing?" And Breath of the Wild is kind of like, it requires a level of input creatively, I think, to unlock that game's potential. Whereas the more I play games, the less time I have to invest and kind of meet games like that halfway. So yeah, again, just sort of like musing on it really. I think this will come back on future podcasts as well, as we sort of variously tackle with this.
Yeah, right. And that got heavy from why am I playing Warframe?
Well, that's what I asked myself. I was like, it's like, I also is that feeling that needing to justify time as well. It's like, I have to have a reason for doing this as well, which is also, affects how a game feels to play.
Indeed,
they're good though, aren't they? Games.
Yeah, I could talk about a game I played that's good.
Yeah,
all right, shall I do that? So I've been playing a ton of Chivalry 2. It fits exactly in this category. I didn't mention it by name because you made a noise then, Tom.
I said, woo.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if it was a kind of interjecting woo or a kind of a passive.
I need help.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a chair collapsing underneath you or something. So I've been playing a ton of Chivalry 2. And I played Chivalry 1, but not a lot. And then I played a lot of Mordhau. So that's really going to be my reference for this particular kind of like competitive medieval combat silly game where you absolutely must disable general chat and men scream constantly regardless. And I am really, really enjoying it. And I want to talk about kind of why it's successful, I think, and why it's become a really good just one session sort of multiplayer action game that nonetheless makes those sessions feel kind of exciting and rewarding. So like Chivalry or Mordhau, this is a game of big European medieval knights smacking each other with big swords and chopping bits off each other and screaming and yelling and kind of being funny. With a kind of pretty granular combat system that takes a fair bit of mastery. It is less granular than Mordhau in that, Mordhau allows for pretty fine movement of your sword or whatever weapon you're wielding, and has lots of different kind of fairly organic feeling outcomes for the way those things interact with each other. However, it doesn't lose a lot of the granularity that matters, I think. And while I would say that I think Chivalry 2 is weaker as a one-on-one dueling game, which is where Mordhau shines, it is far more successful as a mass battle game with some real spectacle. So, one of the ways to illustrate the ways that it's less granular is, like the interactions, the range of sort of attacks and kind of moves available to you is fairly broad. But it's not down to having like an 8-pointed star around your cursor that indicates the direction your sword will move in. Ultimately, you're kind of managing specific combos, special attacks, dash attacks, and things for your particular weapons, whatever you're carrying, mitigated by some of the qualities of the class that you're playing as. And otherwise, things sort of happen within that particular scope. It's a little bit more limited in that regard. But the other thing it does really, really well is, I think at some point they figured out how do we express to the player like exactly what's happened when two blades clash? Like, was this a well-timed block? Was this a riposte? Was this a counter? And so on. And rather than ask you to kind of go through the process of really learning all that stuff, they just tell you as a really good UI that really visibly and kind of impactfully tells you when you have blocked successfully with the word block. And occasionally, if you do a good counter, the timing of the counter will be expressed by whether or not you get white text or gold text when that happens. And these things are just little quality of life things that make those duels far more readable, and your ability to kind of participate in mass combat therefore a lot more manageable. And so these really big mass combats are sort of like, it's a 64-player multiplayer game, so 32-a-side brawls, basically, across kind of objective-based maps for the most part, with a lot of the same kind of considerations that have been in this genre for a while. You're kind of managing a front line. Friendly fire is always on, but usually at like 25% damage. So you do need to watch where you're swinging your sword. And the skill and strategy of the game, which you just genuinely have, is this really satisfying, I think, combination of managing yourself in combat in quite granular, very impactful fights that feel like fights, and also paying attention to the overall kind of strategic flow and the various ways you can interact with it. Each class has various different sort of tools and ultimates and things, but they're fairly straightforward in their applications. Like a banner you can place that will heal in an AoE until it's destroyed. You can honk a big horn, which will do a big heal as a one-off thing. You can throw fire bombs to like deny areas and things like that. And that stuff all works really, really well and feels really, really good. And they've done a really nice job of like taking things that are becoming sort of staples of this genre and implementing them in interesting ways. So, everyone can keep fighting if they get an arm chopped off for a certain amount of time, but how useful that is depends which arm it was, because everyone's right-handed. For example, the you can be downed rather than killed, but that's very much to do with the kind of blow that downed you. And while you're downed, you can still punch, which is extremely funny. You can actually resurrect yourself by punching people in the shins, or be resurrected, or just be kind of non-ceremoniously decapitated while you're on the floor. And it looks and feels really, really good. It feels great, and it looks beautiful, and I was really taken with it on that basis. But the thing I think that really brings it together, and is the reason that I would recommend it, is it has really, really good maps. And I think this is the area where it really starts to race ahead of Mordhau. In that some maps are like Team Deathmatch, but even those ones are good. The others are these massive sort of attack, defend, objective maps that proceed in stages. And there's a little story to each of them. It's not really very important or particularly coherent, but that you'll go through multiple stages of a siege through meaningfully large, kind of exciting kind of environments with interesting changes of strategy and gameplay at each stage. So to give you an example of what I mean by that, a more straightforward example of this could be a map where it's initially, the goal, one faction is trying to ostensibly break a naval fortress that makes a particular naval passage impossible to ply with ships. So it starts with a beach landing and a huge scrap on the beach, where one of the teams has to push one of two battering rams up the beach to the fortress doors, and that that is an interesting kind of payload pushing mode essentially, but where the twist is only one of the payloads needs to make it, which is actually a really good twist to add to payload pushing. It's well, if that one's not working, we'll push the other one. We push both or whatever. And there are siege weapons and also various ways to die in funny ways. And then the next stage is something else, and the next stage is something else, which might be freeing prisoners, or it might be burning down particular buildings, or it might be destroying a particular door, or whatever. And occasionally you have fun objectives where the top scoring player on a given team will now have to play a special role. Like maybe they are the duke that has to avoid being assassinated, or they are the prisoner that's been freed that has to be escorted to a boat, or something like that. And it's constantly playful with these objectives within the scope of a single map, which is actually kind of I've played so many games that do this attack defend thing, whether it's Overwatch or something else. I've not seen another game be this consistently playful with how those objectives can change within the course of a given game. And it works really, really well. And it sort of, and the goal of the defenders in any given case is not to win one of these stages, because if they do that, they win the whole map. It's to bleed time in interesting ways. And on top of all of that, the maps are absolutely full of weird little details. So stuff you can pick up and throw, or eat. If you pick up a fish and press the button to scream, you eat the fish.
Do you scream while eating it?
No, you just open your mouth real wide and it goes, and you get your health back. And this is a strange interaction you'll only discover by picking up a fish and just, what happens if I scream? Or you could also just chuck it at somebody. You can pick up wagon wheels or lob heavy rocks down off battlements onto people and stuff like that. And this is not necessarily the most efficient way to play, but that level of playfulness is really welcome on top of something that manages, I think, to traverse the level between quite technical and exciting and strategic and really fucking dumb, but quite deftly in a way that it all feels very deliberate. And it has some of the Mordhau has spectacularly dumb voice acting, and it's definitely a genre tradition now, but it really does have some of that. The tutorial, which is pretty good at kind of getting you into this kind of game, also is one of the most strangely voice acted experiences I think I've ever seen. It's hard to replicate. It's a man yelling at full blast, quite granular combat instructions as if he's very far away. And it shouldn't work, and it does. And so, yeah, it has got problems. So it's an Epic Store game, and their integration with Epic's friends list is ropey, and therefore playing with your friends is way harder than it should be. And there are some frustrations about how easy it is to switch out the various cosmetics that you might want to play with, but that stuff really doesn't matter that much. It's the first multiplayer game that's come along for a while that's really grabbed me, and I really would recommend it. Like, it's been a really fun distraction. Like, in addition to the team modes, there's also just like free-for-all deathmatch, which I also find really fun. It can be deeply frustrating because it's free-for-all deathmatch, which means that your duel with somebody else is just as likely to be ended when someone 20 yards away overhand yeets a fucking executioner's axe at them. It hits them in the side of the head and they steal your kill. But that's part of it. And like managing that chaos and kind of coming out on top of it is really fun. So yeah, Chivalry 2, it's genuinely good. It's genuinely good. And I think with a bit more polish, I think that's I think it will become a perennial, and I hope it does well, because I think it deserves to, particularly if nothing else for, I think, their contribution to how to make Team Fortress or Overwatch style attack defend maps consistently interesting and fun.
I bought that as you were talking about it.
Damn, that has to be it. Is that a podcast first? Maybe it is. I don't know.
I'm sure I've done it before.
Yeah. Oh, we should play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll really like it. Like there's just a lot going for it. Like really good sense of fun and spectacle, and definitely the game that I found myself dropping into for like half an hour over lunchtime recently, because every single time I play it, something fucking stupid will happen.
Yeah. I like that about the first one as well. So it feels like this is that. I'm really interested to hear about those smarter maps, actually, especially in the context of like a first-person combat game. There is range combat, of course, but yeah, I just think that's interesting, the way that flow is managed and the way that they keep the objectives cool in that context.
And it allows for something that I hope every game like this manages. It's not on a sort of scale with something like Battlefield, but like the good thing about, I don't necessarily think that size is or breadth of the multiplayer experience is necessarily always a good thing. It's about how many meaningful experiences you can have. And like Chivalry has given me the experiences already of like defending a town that's under siege and getting to the point where the siege ramps that the enemy is having to push have moved past the point where our ballistas can reliably do much about them. But now the enemy has taken our ballistas and have turned them around and are making it harder for us to defend. And like running through side streets and climbing and sneaking and trying to get through the ballistas to kill the people manning them and then destroy them and then run away feels amazing. And it's like this little pocket adventure in the scope of a map that feels like I contributed something, and then win or lose, that was the story of the game for me. Or like a couple of games ago, I just had one of those tears where like I was defending, but their enemy pushed their siege tower up to the walls of the fortress that I was supposed to defend. That moves them to the next stage of the map, but I was still outside it. And so the easiest way back inside the fortress for me was up the siege tower that the enemy was themselves using. And I just had a really good series of fights and killed every single person inside that siege tower on the way up. And it felt a bit like, you know, the Lancelot bit in Monty Python, the Holy Grail, just the kind of unlikely combo of like, just like next kill. And then like emerging on the top of the siege tower completely covered in blood, but with no enemies left to kill, running back into the lines of my own dudes and then turning around to defend just felt fucking rad. And like, I feel like the success of these games is never on like, just on what was the whole map like to play. It's always on like, what was my story of navigating this battlefield? And I think that is what I hope to get out of a new Battlefield game, but I'm impressed by how good Chivalry is at evoking it. You can also be decapitated by a Bardiche a lot, and that means that it is on par with Mordhau, at least in that regard.
Is that all you wanted to say about Bardouches?
How dare you? But yes, like, yeah, I think that is all the time we've got in it.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. So. Yeah. All right. Well, if you'd like to send us a question for a future episode of the Crate and Crowbar, where we will return to answering them, you can email us the questions on crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Crate and Crowbar, and we might remember to check. We have a Patreon. It's at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. Thank you very much to everyone who supports the podcast. On our website at crateandcrowbar.com, you can find not only additional episodes of this podcast, but a link to one but two different Discords, one for video games, one for plastic model games. If you are cool, then you this was going well, fuck, then you can enjoy all of the above on YouTube, youtube.com/crate and crowbar, which is also the website where if you type in the right words, you will also be able to see many of the videos discussed on this podcast. Not ones we have made, but no ones where people want to kill chaos. You find that video by typing, what the fuck is that game called again? Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy game or something. I can't remember what it's called, but you should watch that one video and only that one video. It's the last good one. That's it, I think. My name is Chris Thurston. That's who I've been. Who are you, Marsh?
Well, I've been Tom Senior.
I haven't. I've been Marsh Davis, and I'm really looking forward to Death Stranding Extended Million-Hour Edition. Thanks for listening. Oh,
thanks for friends.
That's for friends.
Thanks for friends, everybody, especially Graham.
Sorry.